You really shouldn't be shocked. You knew that we would have feelings. Welcome to a Notsam Wrestling emergency podcast because absolute Ricky Starks has debuted in NXT in a move that maybe wasn't unexpected in general. I would argue was quite unexpected in terms of timing. And I say that because, what was it, 24 hours before we see Ricky Starks, we get word that he actually has been released from AEW. So Ricky Starks is, for those that don't know, somebody who I think most of us in wrestling fandom world have been waiting to get the opportunity to showcase everything that he's truly capable of. Ricky Starks spent a good amount of time in AEW. And in the time that he was there, when he was actually in the ring, he developed a hell of a fan base for his matches, for his promos, for the way he conducts himself. You know, he gets comparisons to this superstar or that superstar, but I find Ricky Starks to be an extremely unique talent, not just for what he does in the ring, but the confidence with which he carries himself. I find it not really to be like anybody else that I've seen before. So Ricky Starks, he comes from the NWA. He goes over to AEW. He's making a name for himself. You know what I mean? And he has a reign as tag champs, and he has a ton of great moments in AEW. He has a whole thing with CM Punk, which was amazing. But something happens, and he kind of disappears from television. Early-ish last year, he's no longer on TV. And a lot of us are wondering, what happened to absolute Ricky Starks? Where is he? And he pops up here and there. He starts getting advertised to do independent shows, starts being advertised to do GCW shows, and then gets pulled from these independents, gets pulled from GCW. He does an interview where he talks about the fact that he is still under contract, but he's not on television right now. And the whole world wants to know, if you have Ricky Starks, why wouldn't you put him on TV? And if you're not going to, why don't you let him go on TV someplace else? And so we're all kind of waiting for what the inevitable future for Ricky Starks will be. Of course, the man has caused controversy in his time. You know, this is the superstar who footage of him was shown, I believe, at either the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or one of those shows. Remember this? I think it was the Royal Rumble, the security cam footage that showed he was there supporting his friend Cody Rhodes. And they said, oh my gosh, somebody from one territory is there in the other territory. But look, we get word on the internet, and who knows what to believe. I don't even know if this is true. Rumors start to spread that Ricky Starks, along with a few other talents that haven't been on television, have been released from AEW. And then on Monday, Ricky Starks' picture is no longer on the AEW roster page on AEW's website. That's Monday. And then Tuesday comes around, and I'm watching NXT, and they're putting up the cage. And while they're putting up the cage for this big cage match between Tony D'Angelo and Ridge Holland, first, Sarah Schreiber is doing an interview with Trick Williams, and it's a different Trick, and he's talking about what he wants to do to Eddie Thorpe and all this. Great interview. I go, okay, now commercial break, I suppose. And then you hear this voice. Oh. And it's like, is that? No. Is that who I think it is? And all of a sudden, Ricky Starks shows up in the crowd in NXT and utters that phrase, "You obviously know who I am." And the audience is chanting, "Ricky, Ricky." They can't believe it. Because as much as this has been an inevitability, as much as people have waited, you know, this has been a conversation that we've had online. What's going to happen when Ricky Starks hits the WWE? What's going to happen when somebody that we think has all of this potential is in an environment where he can execute upon it? Does he have the potential that we think he does? And people have been very excited about this. But the idea that 24 hours removed from hearing rumors that he was off the roster, now he's here in NXT, nobody saw it coming. But he says, "You obviously know who I am," as they're chanting for him. He describes himself as the hottest free agent. He said if NXT is the hottest wrestling brand in the world right now, then it only makes sense that the hottest free agent would be here. He says, don't let his handsome face an expensive fragrance for you that he is in NXT to turn the place upside down. And it did for a second make me think, maybe I should start spending a lot of money on cologne. Because he does, right? Doesn't Ricky Starks carry this aura about him where you would imagine that he probably smells expensive? Like, he feels like his haircut's expensive, his clothes are expensive, and it just seems like, and I don't know. I've said hello to the man plenty of times. I've never taken a moment to smell him. But on television, it comes across like he smells expensive. He says people keep asking, when will the Revolution be televised again? And says that he's here. And he leaves, and everyone goes nuts, and everyone's so excited about it. And Vic Joseph says, of course we know who that is. But they never say his name. Ricky doesn't say his name. Vic Joseph doesn't say his name. When the YouTube video comes out with his debut, his name is not said even in the title. It says the shock debut on NXT or whatever it says. So, and who knows? Obviously, this is all moving very, very quickly. So who knows if they're trying to figure out legality behind it? Who knows if they've got a plan that they're going to go this way instead of that way? Or they just haven't figured it out yet. I mean, for me, if it's all just pure choice, I feel like Ricky Starks is a name that's been established enough that he would keep the name. But sometimes these things aren't just about pure, like, do we want to or do we not want to? There's a lot of complications that go into this stuff that is way beyond any of our pay grades, and thank God for that. But I don't think, whether he keeps his name or his name changes, I don't think it's going to affect him. You know, every time a name changes, we freak out a little bit. You know, when Walter becomes Gunther, when this one becomes that one, we freak out for a second. I mean, when Bryan Danielson became Daniel Bryan, it was like, what do you mean? And then it becomes normal within a week. It's really not a big deal. You know, ultimately it comes down to what the superstar does with their time on television. And whatever name they go by, if they're making the most of their television minutes and connecting with us, with the audience, there's a lot of names that we can look past. I mean, Razor Ramon on paper is kind of a silly name, but who doesn't love the bad guy, Razor Ramon? He made the name, you know? So I'm not too caught up in that name thing. What I am caught up on is the fact that NXT just keeps rolling. There's a movement to NXT, and I think that movement is what allows somebody like Ethan Page to show up out of nowhere, is what allows somebody like Ricky Starks to show up out of nowhere, but is the healthiest way to run this brand, where the idea is that eventually the biggest stars on that brand will move to other brands. Eventually, we won't see Carmelo Hayes on NXT anymore because he'll be moved to either SmackDown or Raw. And you say the same thing about Grayson Waller, who's back for Vengeance Day, but ultimately at one point was an NXT superstar. Braun Breaker. Like, there has to be this constant wheel moving. That way, whenever it's time for somebody to go to the main roster, there's somebody else on NXT that's keeping that show exciting without losing the spirit of the fact that it is there to get people ready to be on SmackDown, to be on Raw, to be at Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. And I think Ricky Starks, to me, is this unique talent where I believe he will truly bring back that question of, oh, can you imagine what's going to happen when he's on the main roster? I think it will be very quick for Ricky Starks in NXT in terms of becoming a top guy on that brand. I think that the idea, even with Oba Femi as NXT World Champion, I truly believe that Ricky Starks is going to be able to capture enough momentum on that show that people are going to want to see him as champion. The idea now, when we're shaping the future in these cards and what it could look like, the idea that Stand and Deliver could, and again, these are feelings. This is me reacting. He's literally been around for hours, and I'm already going, what if we did this? But what if we did Oba Femi versus Ricky Starks for the NXT Championship at Stand and Deliver? Because the thing about having a champion like Oba Femi is you assume he's never going to lose, right? When it's Obafemi, it's like not only just because of the sheer size, but because of how good this guy is, because of how much he connects. Now, if he's in there with Ricky Starks, somebody that has all this momentum, somebody that people want to see be a world champion, somebody that people want to see destiny be fulfilled for, then it becomes very compelling. It's not even about the size difference anymore as much as it is, well, if anyone's going to beat Obafemi, shouldn't it be Ricky Starks? And maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse here. I don't know. But then who knows? And then after Stand and Deliver, what do you, Ethan Page versus Ricky Starks? Imagine that as your headline for this NXT brand. It could be great, but I think that's what it'll be. I think from now until it happens, people are going to be wondering, when are you going to go all the way? When are you going to put the championship on Ricky Starks? And once that championship is on him, that's when people are going to start talking about the main roster possibilities. That's when then we're going to start having real conversations about, hey, with all the history this guy has, what's going to happen when Cody Rhodes and Ricky Starks meet in a ring on the main roster? We know that these guys are the best of friends. What's going to happen when the WWE superstar Ricky Starks meets WWE superstar Cody Rhodes? What's going to happen after everything that we would see on Collision? What's going to happen when this version of CM Punk meets this version of Ricky Starks? What's going to happen when Drew McIntyre, who is just sitting here busting his ass for every opportunity, sees another person come in with another wave of momentum from the outside and starts worrying, this character starts worrying that now Ricky Starks is here to take what Drew McIntyre feels like is his. What's Drew McIntyre and Ricky Starks going to look like? I mean, there's so many matches that you could immediately put together with this guy. It's really phenomenal. And phenomenal. AJ Styles versus Ricky Starks. And I think it's going to be another exercise in sort of the WWE showcasing their ability to have people be perceived as big stars. Immediately upon that return, Ricky Starks came across like it's a big deal that this guy is in NXT. It's a big deal that he's here. And this is something that, realistically, capturing buzz is something that they're good at. Because realistically, not everybody that watches NXT watches AEW. Many people who watch NXT have never seen Ricky Starks wrestle before. And even more, there are many people who watch Raw and SmackDown that don't watch NXT, let alone NWA, AEW, the independents, that have never seen Ricky Starks wrestle, except the way wrestling fans are, this buzz is very contagious. When Pentagon showed up on Raw, there were a lot of people that had never seen a Penta match before. But they understood the gravity of Penta being here, and then watching the presentation accepted the level of star that he was being portrayed as. I think that Ricky Starks is the next in line for that treatment, where whether you've been waiting for this for a long time or you're just understanding the level of anticipation, the buzz that's around this, you're going to feel it. And I think it's going to work. I think it's really, really big. I think it's really cool that stuff like this is happening all over the place, that you never can tell when this guy's contract winds up. Is he going to end up in NXT? Is he going to end up on Raw, on SmackDown? Is he going to go straight over there? Is he going to go straight over here? It's a cool thing to watch it all happen. And the fact that we now know that Ricky Starks, or however he will be known forth on, is in NXT, but we have no idea what he's going to be doing in NXT, can only lead us to one thing. And that's the thing I enjoy more than just about anything else. There are three things that I enjoy. I enjoy watching the product. I enjoy noticing that everything counts. And I enjoy the thing that we now must do, and that's wild speculation. What do you think? Where are we going with Ricky Starks? Where would you go with Ricky Starks? The world's been shocked again. Appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed everywhere. We will talk again soon. I can't wait to see what's next.